Hi, I'm Pablo and this is Sidless. In today's video, I'll be talking about how to actually perform a tapping session. In my last video, I kind of did an intro in how tapping works and why it works and why I use it personally. But in this video, I'll be actually showing you the points on where to tap and walk you through an actual session. All right, now let's go over the points. Now before we start, I know this doesn't look like a normal human. I didn't mean for him to look like an almond-shaped person or an alien. Forgive my art skills, okay? But let me just go through the points one by one, all right? Now, in almost all tapping scripts, the first point you start with is the eyebrow, which is right here. You have your eyebrow first, and there's a lot of tapping scripts that have visualizations, and a lot of times they shorthand eyebrow for EB. All right, some are a little slightly different, but this is the generic one, especially if you go to that one website I said, tappingsolution.com. This is the way they have their set up, and most tapping scripts kind of follow this format. So EB, that's eyebrow. And then the very next point, well, let me just tell you, when you tap on the eyebrow, it's technically 2 points right next to each other. So what happens is you take your 2 fingers, or 3, or depending how big your eyebrow is, and you lightly tap. All right, it doesn't look like much. All right, and when you first do it, you might be confused about how hard to tap. You got to tap like really hard. Like this is kind of overdoing it. That's a little much. This is supposed to be a common thing. All right, so it's a light tap. After a while of just sometimes just tapping on these points without saying anything, you'll start to calm down. All right, so kind of get a feel for it. If it's your first time doing it ever, kind of just take your time. Take a deep breath and just start tapping on that point. Now, when you start a script, it's kind of hard to do it on this drawing, but there's one point I didn't write down, and it's called the karate chop point. And this is, this is the point where it sounds like if you take one of your hands, doesn't matter which one. If you were to karate chop someone, that's the part of the hand you want to tap on first. So when you're doing a preparatory statement, like for example, if we were doing a tapping script on anxiety, then you'd literally take your hand, tap on it lightly. I'd use all 4 fingers just to cover the whole length of the hand, but I mean, if you know specifically where that point is, you use a couple, but it's just easier to do all 4 and just do a light tap like that. And then you say the statement, oh, I feel so anxious. You know, I have a presentation later today that I'm nervous about. You know, you kind of just set your intention for the session. So you always start with the karate chop point. The whole purpose of starting with this point is to just set the session. All right. And from there, you focus on the rest of these points. So after you've done your preparatory statement, the first point you usually start on is the eyebrow. And then you work your way down with the exception of the top of the head. That's the last point. So you do the eyebrow first. EB, you tap on there. It's about 2 fingers. It's literally going to be where the 2 brows meet. Let me scoot a little closer. Just the point where the 2 eyebrows meet. All right, you just tap on that, say your statement. And then when you move on to the next point, which is the side of the eye, which is SE in tapping script mumbo jumbo, it's literally going to be literally just the side of the eye. All right, just take your 2 fingers and just tap right kind of where the eyebrow ends, directly to the side of either eye. Now you notice there's, for some of these points, there's 2. There's one on this side and one on that side. It's not important which side you do. You only have one amygdala, and both of these send signals to the amygdala. All right. But if you just start off and you got both free hands, which you kind of need in some of these points, I would recommend doing both at the same time. Because what happens is whenever you do an action on both sides of your body, you're literally engaging both sides of your brain. And the more often you do that, the more in sync your brain becomes. And that's a whole long list of other benefits you get from your brain being more in sync with each other. Because having 2 hemispheres in one brain means sometimes one side is favored over the other and the other one gets a little bit lower activity. But having them do one action at the same time kind of helps them get more in sync. And tapping helps with that, just from the nature of tapping on these points at the same time. So you don't have to, but I'd recommend tapping on both sides. All right. It can be two fingers. It can be your whole hand. Like some of these points, I kind of just tap like this. My pinky won't reach, but I kind of, instead of like doing this number where like some of these points I need all four and some of them need two, I kind of just do whatever feels right. And sometimes I'll just use the whole hand. It's not important as long as the tapping on the skin is occurring and your nerves are sensing the tapping sensation. Whatever works for you. All right. This technique is very versatile. You don't need to do it a very specific way. So remember that. Now the very next point is underneath the eye, which is UE, which is like how it sounds. Like these are pretty straightforward, but I just want to make sure you guys understand exactly where these points are. So underneath the eye is literally the fleshy part underneath your eye, not like the eyelid part, but like where like the eye and the nose kind of like, are kind of meeting a little bit. Not meet, but you get the idea. That pretty much you just tap right there underneath the eye and the fleshy part of your eye, or both sides like that one. And then you move on to the next point, which is underneath the nose, which is UN underneath the nose. Just like I said, there's only so much space between your upper lip and your nose, so it's pretty easy to get this point. And it doesn't matter what hand either. Just get right there and tap. Just a light tap. If you got a mustache, sometimes I have problems where like I kind of tap upward on one of my little hairs and it pokes me and like, and I get that. My eye waters a little bit because I tapped on it too hard. I'd kind of, for guys that have mustaches and some ladies, kind of tap down a little bit so your mustache is not really a problem. Most people don't really have this issue. It's just, if you got a stringy mustache like mine, it might be a problem, but just kind of tap on it lightly, all right? Just in the center where the nose is, just tap right there in the center between the lip and the nose. And now this one, after that point, you have the chin, which is, like I said, it's the chin, which is not directly on the chin, but kind of like right beneath the lip and where the chin kind of meet, that little divot you have right there that most people have. That little part where like the lip comes down. My bad, gotta silence my phone. The lip right there to where the chin meets, there's a little dimple right there. Just go ahead and tap right in that little crevice. All right, with either hand, it don't matter. Just tap like that. And then after that point, you get the collarbone, which is CB, collarbone. This part's it's not too tricky. And then this is one of my favorite points. You can kind of feel where your collarbone is right here. Some people might be if you're a little more on the heavier side, it might be a little bit harder to find, but kind of take your hands and kind of feel where the bone is and kind of tap right underneath that or right above it. And you'll feel there's a slightly more sensitive part of your chest in that area. And it's better to do this one. I kind of always use both hands on this one. You kind of just sit there and use all four of your fingers to kind of get the bigger area. All right. And like I said, you don't have to be exact, but it helps to have more fingers. Just kind of lightly tap, just like that. And just doing it right now is kind of calming me down. Just right here, I've been doing it as I'm showing you. I'm kind of like getting calmer. Okay. So after collarbone, this is under the arm. All right. For the ladies, it's a little easier to find because it goes where your bra is, like right where that strap is. That's the point you want to tap. And for guys, same thing. You kind of just have to use your fingers. It's kind of hard to do it like this. So maybe this is one you want to just do one arm. But I say screw it sometimes and I go like this. That looks a little funny though. But just kind of pick a side. Don't really matter. When you do these tapping scripts, you go through all of them more than once. You start the eyebrow, make you all the way through them, and then you go to the eyebrow again and keep going. All right. It's not really important how many rounds. It's kind of like you keep doing it till you feel better. So if each round you want to switch arms, that's fine. You don't got to stick to one side if you started. Like on one round, you can do the left side. Next round, you can do the right. Or just use both. Doesn't really matter. It's your preference. So when it comes to underarm, that's probably one it's just a little easier to do one arm at a time. So kind of just find a slightly sensitive part. Like imagine like someone were to hug you and they go underneath your arms. There's a reason why that part is sensitive. Like it kind of sends a signal to calm you. That's why when people hug you, they kind of touch this part of your body. And that's why the calming effect comes from. All right. And you can say that about a lot of these points. When someone kisses you on the cheek or on the forehead, or on the lips, you got 2 points right where the lips are. It sends these calming signals to the brain, and that's the reason why these points are there to begin with. And then the last point is probably the easiest, is the top of the head. All right. And if you got, a fancy hairdo or something and you don't want to mess it up, then it's okay. Just a light tap. You don't got to tap too hard. Like with me right now, my hair's a little wet, so I'm getting a little bit of gel on my fingers, but don't worry about it. All right. Unless you do care about your hair, then maybe do this before you do your hair, or don't care about your hair, you can tap on it. I don't care about my hair, doesn't matter. But the last point is on the top of the head. All right. And then after you're done doing this one, you start back to the eyebrow. All right. Now, as promised, we are going to do a session. Now, if you're feeling comfortable enough to participate, then I ask that if you are going to try this, then to find a spot where it's quiet, where you won't be distracted, and you'll be able to focus, because this technique is much more effective when you're able to focus on what is being said. All right. And I'd also recommend that you kind of, if you're not feeling something right away, then just remember that this is a technique that, it's kind of like it gets better with time. Some people's very first time, I should warn you, they might not feel anything. Some people, though, on the flip side, on the very first session, they immediately feel the effects. So I encourage you that if after this first session you don't feel too much different, don't toss this technique in the trash. All right, think about what maybe you've done wrong. Maybe you were just a little bit too far away from the points, or maybe you weren't actually paying attention to what was being said, because some people get very good at blocking out and repressing memories and things that they kind of trick themselves into not letting this work for them. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but this is a technique it's called tapping. Imagine it like if you have a glass wall, and that's the barrier to your emotions and problems. People kind of assume that this technique is like a hammer and it's going to just break that down. It's more like tapping. All right, the more you tap on it, the more the cracks in that barrier are going to happen. Like, you've ever seen that movie Divergent, and there's that scene where she has that nightmare and she's in that glass wall. She starts tapping on it and the glass slowly starts cracking and then shatters. Imagine this technique working like that on your emotions. That if you have a dam built up of emotions, it's not going to come down easy. Tapping literally weakens the foundation, and eventually you will feel that release. So let's get to it. Now, with every tapping session, before you even get started, whatever emotion that you're trying to tap on, you need to put a number on it. And in this session, we're going to do one on general anxiety. So, rate your anxiety from a scale of 1 to 10. If it helps, write it down on here. I'm not very anxious right now. I've been kind of tapping throughout this video, but kind of do your best. I know if you've never done this before, it'd be hard to put a number on it, but think of 10 as the most anxious you've ever been that you can remember, and 0 being the most chill you've ever felt in your life. Okay, and kind of put a number on where you're at right there. All right. Purpose of this is so you compare afterward and you kind of give a visual confirmation of how much calmer this tapping session made you. All right. So I'm just start with a basic script. I've been doing it long enough to kind of just give you a general idea of how it works, but there's better ones online you can find that kind of get in more detail on what to say and stuff. So this one, we'll just keep it simple. All right. Okay. Get your hand, karate chop point, and we'll do the preparatory statement first. All right. Repeat after me. I am feeling so anxious right now. After I say it, either in your head or out loud, go ahead and repeat what I just said. Now keep tapping the whole time we're doing this. I'll let you know when to change points. I am feeling so nervous. I feel this anxiety in my body. If you have a specific part of the body, go ahead and name that specific part. Some people feel it in their chest, like a tightness in the chest. Some people feel like it's a pit in their stomach. The more specific you are, the better. So go ahead and focus on that part of your body where you feel the anxiety the most. I cannot stand to feel this way. Being anxious makes me feel weak. I will do anything to get rid of this anxiety. Now, this is the part where we start going through the points, all right? I am so anxious. I can feel the anxiety in my body. This anxiety is something I carry with me everywhere. This anxiety is something I carry around every day. I feel this anxiety in this specific part of my body. Go ahead and name that part. This anxiety is a weight I want to lift. I need help with getting rid of this anxiety. I hate even having to say the word anxiety. Okay, now that is just one round of tapping. All right, and I kept it very simple, and that was just me kind of shooting off top of my head. But what was it? There are tapping scripts that kind of get more into detail on these points. All right, what happens is that's one round. You usually do like 2 to 3 rounds. You kind of go through it, kind of get more specific on how you feel. All right, if it's not anxiety you're dealing with, maybe it's anger. You know, especially in the world right now, there's a lot of anger being thrown around. Instead of saying I'm so anxious, you can be like, I am so pissed off. You know, I am so pissed. All right. I hate the fact that no one listens to me. All right. I can't stand so and so. All right. Be very specific. If there's like you're fighting with like a family member or a coworker or whatever, say their name. All right. I can't stand when Susan gives me that damn look. You know, whatever it is, be specific. All right. Go through the points. Do 2 or 3 rounds. Okay. And then when you're done with that, all right, go ahead and in some sessions it's a little easier when someone's kind of walking you through it. But this is the part that after you've done 2 or 3 rounds of getting the negative stuff out, you know, feeling, saying how you really feel in that moment, this is when you swap and you go to the positive affirmations. All right. So I'm gonna go back to the anxiety example. All right. So let's say you've done 2 or 3 rounds saying how anxious you are. When you come back to this point, you swap it. You do a round or two of positive affirmations. Now you're just like, I am at peace. I feel brave. The pain or the tightness in my chest is going away. I am already feeling lighter. I am able to breathe easier. This anxiety is dampening down. I am already starting to feel better. Anxiety has no longer any hold over me. Do a round or two of that, and you're done. All right? When you're done, stop for a moment, rate yourself again. At the beginning, I told you to put a number on your anxiety. All right? And in this case, what I'm going to need you to do is do that again. But you'll notice most of the time, the number will go down. All right. There will be moments where the number might go up a little bit. All right. And that's not, that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. What that means is if you're someone that normally kind of holds emotions in and kind of buries them within yourself, what happens is what you're doing, like I said, when you're doing that, the tapping on the glass is you're letting these emotions come forward. All right. You are addressing these emotions. So in some cases, you might get a little bit more angry, a little bit more anxious. And that's, I'm going to tell you right now, that's a good thing. All right. Don't feel like you're doing it wrong. All right. All that means is you got to go back and you got to hang out there a little bit longer. You got a couple more rounds. All right. What happens is when those emotions come up, that means you were repressing them. And it doesn't mean that they weren't affecting you. It just means that they're in the back of your head and they're just going to mess you up later down the road. So the fact that you're getting it out now, it's kind of like ripping off a Band-Aid. All right. People want to just sit there and peel it off. Hopefully, like it slowly comes off, but ripping it off, yeah, it's going to hurt a little bit more in that moment. But the longer, just do a couple more rounds to bring it back down. You're letting that emotion flow through you like it should have happened in the beginning. And what's going to end up happening is that you're going to do a few more rounds and that number will come back down. All right. Another thing that might happen is, if you're talking about something general like anxiety, as you're tapping, thoughts will be passing through your head. Maybe, you're tapping on general anxiety, but then you remember you have that thing at work tomorrow, like a presentation, or you got some kind of other important appointment coming up the next day or so. And then if these specific things are popping up in your head, what you've just accomplished for yourself was you pinpointed the source of your anxiety. All right. So what that means is when you're tapping, any specific thoughts are going through your head. If you're focusing on the feeling of anxiety and your mind starts flashing these other things in your head, that's literally you telling yourself, that's what I'm anxious about, or that's what I'm angry about, or whatever. All right. Sometimes in the middle of a session, you need to switch gears and focus specifically on that. If you're tapping on anxiety before, just be like, oh, I am so nervous about this specific presentation. Oh, I'm so nervous about this speech I got to give tomorrow. And just the more specific, the better. All right. So the awesome thing about tapping is it's very versatile, but it's also very flexible. All right. You might start with an intention of one thing, but you'll realize throughout the session that the real source of your problem was something else. All right. So with that being said, go ahead. I will try to post something in the description, a better tapping script. The one I gave you was it's kind of lazy, but it's just to give you the general idea on how to do this, okay? But I want you guys, if you're actually serious about trying this, do your research. Just go online real quick, type in tapping scripts or emotional freedom, EFT tapping scripts. You can find them online, all right? And the reason I showed you this is they're going to have statements, right? It's a little hard to do, like tapping and then reading at the same time. But if you end up doing it that way, they'll have a statement right next to these points. And just to let you know that, say this statement while you're tapping on this point. Sit there for a little bit. If you're paying attention, like you don't sit too long on each point, but you sit there for a little bit. Let the statement sink in as you're tapping on that point. Then the next statement, you move to the next point, and so on and so forth. Sometimes they even recommend doing the whole script 2 or 3 times, all right? It doesn't take too long, all right? They say you got to meditate for 20 minutes. You can tap for 10 minutes and get the same results as like an hour-long meditation, all right? So with that in mind, I hope you guys are, got enough information to get you started, enough information and knowledge and tips to kind of just take this and run with it. And I hope that this helps you. And that's the whole point of this video. I know there's a lot of stuff going on in the world where having a calmer, more centered mindset would really help with a lot of problems we're facing as a society. And I feel like the more and more people kind of take this technique or other similar techniques or ways of calming themselves down, the more and more people that are calm, the easier it will be to solve these problems. So I encourage you to try it. I encourage you to talk to people about it if they've ever heard of it. If you're a little nervous about trying this in front of people, then maybe go ahead and just do it on your own first before, make yourself a believer before you go and share this with people, because when I first started talking about it, I had people look at me funny, like, what the fuck, you're gonna tap and like it's gonna make you feel better? That sounds ridiculous, right? So I would recommend just kind of getting good at it first, or unless you have a spouse or a friend or someone that you want to try it with, go ahead and get them involved. All right, the more the merrier. So with that being said, go ahead and get started. I hope this helps you, and have a good day.